if your small business received a pandemic loan from the Small Business Administration, a COVID EIDL, Economic Injury Disaster Loan, then today's video is for you. I'm Trevor, the EIDL expert, and today I have a stack of YouTube comments. I'm going to review a couple of these. As always, we want to thank you folks who have subscribed to the channel over the last few months. We truly appreciate that. And if you are not already subscribed, you may be startled by the statistics that more than 70% of the folks who watch our videos are not subscribed. So could you take a moment right now to subscribe to the video, hit the thumbs up. When you hit the thumbs up, you're telling Google to share this video with other small business owners like you who need this kind of a resource. Because we are now discovering here on YouTube that there is practically nowhere to go for information about the COVID EIDL. And as I'm going to discuss in an upcoming video, you can't even get straight answers from the SBA, and you cannot get answers from an accountant or attorney that you may be doing business with to advise you. Yeah, so we may be the last bastion of accurate and useful information, advice, and recommended strategies for you to manage your COVID EIDL, whether you're having difficulty making payments, whether you want to sell assets, sell your business, close your business, file a bankruptcy, whatever the issues are about managing your COVID loan, we're here to help you with that information. And as part of our ●𝗏𝗟 series of videos, today I'm going to do a couple of comments and respond to these comments. This is from 𝗓𝗍𝗂2569, who says, I saw on the website that the interest was accruing big time, even though it was supposed to be a low interest. When you say accruing big time, even though it was supposed to be low interest, a couple of things, and often with these comments, I like to go backwards. So that's not the whole comment, but I just want to start with that opening sentence and start at the end of the sentence. Low interest. It is, 𝗓𝗍𝗂, it is a low interest. It's a ridiculously low interest. In fact, if you are savvy enough and if you have a good CPA, certified public accountant, helping you with your tax returns, then you probably already know that that 3.75% interest, which is a fixed rate for 30-year term of the loan, which there's no commercial lending ever available at that rate. Mind you, prior to COVID, we were just getting started as commercial financing brokers, and we had a couple of SBA loans approved, and the rates were double or more of what the SBA provided to all of you during the pandemic. So, 𝗓𝗍𝗂, I apologize, but I'm going to massively, vehemently, stridently, ardently, passionately disagree with you. It is a low interest. And again, as I was saying a moment ago, if you are savvy and you have a good accountant, then you probably are taking that interest that you're paying, that interest it's accruing big time, 𝗓𝗍𝗂, and you are probably deducting that against business revenue on your tax return. I'm not an accountant, and this is not tax advice. Please confirm this with your accountant. But in my experience, typically you can deduct interest on a business loan, which is what the COVID loan was, against revenue earned by your business, which, because I love doing math, because I was a mortgage banker for 30 years and I know a little bit about tax deductions, things like property taxes and mortgage interest and that like, and about interest rates on loans, I'm going to tell you, in many cases, I wouldn't be surprised if the act of deducting the interest on your tax return against revenue combined with the low interest rate of 3.75% makes this, wait for it, here it comes, boom, free money. Yeah, because the deduction effectively zeroes out the interest rate. I mean, that's how deductions work on financing. Okay, next part of 𝗓𝗍𝗂's comment. Plus, they kept sending me messages stating that the time to start paying the loan was pushed back, so it would be logical to think that interest was being halted. I apologize again. I'm going to disagree with you and tell you, I'm not just going to disagree this time. I'm going to tell you you were wrong, because nowhere, anywhere in the SBA communications, and I've dealt with thousands of transactions with the SBA since 2020. I've spoken to SBA representatives. I've worked with small business owners like you, 𝗓𝗍, either to get the loans approved or manage transactions after the pandemic was over, and we help people with different processes they had to interact with the SBA. And nowhere did anyone ever say in any document, in any verbal communication, in any written communication on the SBA website, in the loan agreement that you signed, nowhere did anyone say interest was being halted. And you are making an assumption here, and I'm just going to be very kind to you, 𝗓𝗍, because I realize I'm beating you up a bit in this response to your comment. I'm not going to tell you what it means when you assume something. You were incorrect in saying it would be logical to think interest was being halted. What they were telling you to do was that you had a 30-month deferment period. If you remember, folks, initially when you got the loan in 2020 or 2021, when you first received the first loan, you may have requested an increased modification later on, but when you got the first loan, you had a 6-month deferment, which was extended 12, 24, ultimately 30 months. That's 2.5 years, where the SBA, the federal government, said to you, you do not have to make any payments on this loan during the 30-month period of deferment, because we realize that you need time to get back on your feet after the pandemic. We realize you need time to recover, recoup, recharge, reinvigorate your business from the pandemic experience. But they also said, while you are in this 30-month deferment period, please note, interest will continue to accrue. In fact, interest started accruing on the day you signed the very first loan agreement. I need to emphasize that point of the first loan agreement because I did a 1-hour consulting call with someone earlier today, and ultimately his business got $1.8 million in pandemic financing through the COVID program, the EIDL program. And he kept talking about the date, the 1.8, and I said to him, wait, didn't you get an original loan back in 2020 for $150,000? He said, yes, I got that. He said, that was the first loan, but I got the second loan. I said, no, you had one loan. You got the one loan in 2020 for $150,000, signed a loan agreement, and the interest started accruing on that date. Started calculating. You know, they get into a taxi in New York City, and the old school days. If you don't know what I'm talking about, find reruns of the TV show Taxi, and you can see what I mean. They drop the taxi meter, and the meter starts running. The interest started accruing on these loans when you signed that first loan agreement in 2020 or 2021, when you got the first disbursement of the loan. Not when you requested and were approved and received a modification for an increase later on. When that happened, the interest was already accruing from when you got the loan initially. And that date of when you got the initial loan is the date that the 30-month deferment period started. And so you must count 30 months from there. And so, 𝗓𝗍, when you say the SBA kept sending me messages stating that the time to start paying the loan was pushed back, that was the deferment. They extended from 6 months, 12 months, etc., ultimately to 30 months. Okay? But they also communicated with you, not very well, I will say. If you've watched any of our other videos, you know that I think SBA's communications generally are very terrible. And we saw this last year with the U.S. Treasury mess. But essentially, the SBA was saying, hey, don't forget the 30-month deferment period on your loan is going to end on such and such a date, or in the coming months, and you should prepare to make full payments. That's full payments of principal and interest. Now, another note, in case you haven't seen our previous videos, and I would encourage any of you watching today to do a couple of things. Hit the like button, hit that thumbs up, subscribe to the channel. If you want to book a 1-hour call to pick my brains, there's a link in the description. But I encourage you to do something else. Read your loan agreement. Watch our videos that we've done previously about reading the loan agreement, understanding the terms. There's also a video we previously did about prepayment and amortization and accrued interest. Back to 𝗓𝗍. When the 30-month deferment period ended, you were required to make regular payments every month, which would supposedly be principal and interest. But if during the 30-month deferment period you did not make any payments at all, then what would happen at the end of the 30-month deferment period when you started making payments? All of that money would go towards interest first. And in the loan agreement, it says all monies will first be applied to interest, which is why you see here, 𝗓𝗍𝗍, I saw on the website the interest accruing big time. Yeah, because the clock is running and you obviously did not make any payments at all during the 30-month deferment period. You always had the option to do that. But many people exercised the deferment and did not make payments. So you can't now complain that you're not attacking the loan. This is a 30-year loan. I've said in previous videos, when I was a mortgage banker, I would explain to my clients who are buying houses and getting a 30-year mortgage that for the first 22 years on a 30-year loan, you're paying primarily interest. You're paying a little bit of principal in the early days. And that's if you have what's called a fully amortizing loan. Again, I would encourage you to go back and watch our video about amortization. 𝗓𝗍𝗍 goes on to say, lies, all lies. Sorry, you're wrong, 𝗓𝗍𝗍. Now I'm getting a little annoyed because you did not take the time to read the loan agreement and to properly take the time to consult with your experts, your attorney, your accountant, and ask them, what does this mean? Show them the loan agreement. Tell me how this works. 𝗓𝗍𝗍 goes on to say, when I saw how little my $18 a month was knocking down the balance, had me realize this was a government debt trap. $18. How much was your loan? I mean, this sounds like this was like a $8,000, $10,000 loan. Well, let's see. $10,000 would be about $48 a month. How much was your loan? Kind of thinking maybe I should not have picked this comment. All right, on to our next 𝗘𝗜𝗟𝗜𝗂 comment. This is from David Drew. Good morning, Linda Ray and Trevor. Can you direct me to the paid content? We will happily direct you to the paid content. There is a link in the description where for the first 10 days of June of 2025, you can access our newly updated, published EIDL Resource Hub Guidebook for the current price before we implement a substantial price increase. This offer is only available for a limited time. You pay the current price and you will get all of the newly published updates, which we just published those updates in the last week or so, which is June 1st, 2nd, 3rd, in that range. Therefore, David Drew, the paid content is in a link in the description below. I want to pay off my EIDL loan drama-free, David Drew continues. And I believe you have content on how and what to do before making the payment. And you would be correct. We do have that content, David Drew, and thank you for your compliment. I am also open to a phone consult if that makes more sense. P.S. Oh, this is so nice. I love your passion, compassion, and integrity. Keep up the great work. I feel like it just stopped there, but I won't. I'll do one more comment on today's video. Okay, this is from ◕𝗷𝗍𝗔𝗱 3051. I was approved for a large EIDL loan, and they ran out of money right when I was about to get funded. Is there any recourse? I don't know if they are still following through on this, ◕𝗷𝗍𝗔𝗱, but you should send an email to the SBA COVID Loan Servicing Center, cesc@sba.gov. Put your SBA loan number in the subject line, and basically take this sentence and cut and paste it into the email, signed with your full name and the SBA loan number, and send it to that email address and see if they respond and if they can assist you. Up until recently, there was an option on the COVID Loan Servicing Center phone line where you could hit a button on the menu and speak to somebody about having been approved for a loan and not getting the funds. I believe now the only recourse you have is to send an email and see if the SBA responds. I feel like I got to do this one last one because it's a nice compliment. This is from 𝗓𝗂𝗏𝗏s 3011. I like how you say it's not going to happen, smiley face, but at least you're honest and you're telling the truth. There is no free mail. And this is in response to our EIDL Forgiveness Update 2025 that we did a few months ago, actually. So bonbons, thank you. It's a very kind compliment. If you have a comment to share with us that is positive, if you have a question, pop into the comments below. Tell us what you think of today's video. Tell us what questions or what issues you'd like us to address in future videos. As a warning, if you are going to pop into our comments and do stupid words like plandemic, phrases like sending money to Ukraine, and all that crap, we will ship you out the airlock into outer space. We will block you from the channel, and you will not have access to this free advice any longer. Choose carefully your words. For all the rest of you wonderful folks, Linda Ray and I truly appreciate you. And once again, if you'd like to book a call, there is a link in the description. Our calendar is open for the month of June and July for Tuesdays only for a paid 1-hour consulting call. And if you wish to buy the EIDL Resource Hub at the current price before the big price increase, the link in the description will be there with the discount access until I think either June 13th or 14th of 2025. As always, we thank you for tuning in. See you next time around.